Hello and welcome to GreenBiz Studio. I'm Grant Harrison, Director for Sustainable Finance and ESG with GreenBiz Group, and I'm excited to be speaking today with Alex Robinson, Head of Market Development for EmpoweredESG. Alex, great to have you in the studio today.
Great to be here.
So let's start at the beginning, always the most logical place to start. Your ESG solution and the approach you've taken. Please describe for us.
Thanks. So, our ESG solution, EmpoweredESG, has been built on the back of a long history of GRC solutions, governance, risk and compliance solutions. So we've taken the best of those and our ability to integrate with all of those capabilities and produced an ESG solution. We've looked at lots of the different frameworks and regulations that are out there already. Of course, those are changing and evolving over time. But we've looked at the approach that those take and understood how we can best help organizations pull together all of the information they need to work within those frameworks into one solution, and how they can best manage that in the face of the ever-changing regulations that they're facing.
And sticking with those ever-changing regulations, ever-changing and growing frameworks, 2023 New Year's resolution is to stop saying alphabet soup, so I will say ESG universe instead. How would you tell companies and investors tuning in here how to best manage that regulatory landscape, and maybe particularly from your view from across the pond, at least from where I'm sitting?
So the approach we've taken is to look at all of those different frameworks, understand the common pieces of all of them, and see if we can come up with a solution that allows you to manage your ESG objectives and fit within any of those frameworks. Lots of organizations are wanting to report against multiple frameworks anyway, so you need that flexibility. You don't want to have to monitor all of your information multiple different times to meet different frameworks. So we've taken a strategic objectives approach. You define your ESG vision. Within that, you define the different strategic objectives that you have in order to meet that vision, and then ultimately determine what are the key results that you need to achieve in order to meet your objectives. Those objectives, those key results can then be mapped to the different frameworks. So if you're looking at a particular framework, let's say TCFD, for example, which is prominent in the UK, then you can view a disclosure for that framework, and you can understand which objectives that you're managing and monitoring as part of your business as usual processes, which of those objectives will help you respond to that particular disclosure. So you need to understand your overall objectives. And then, of course, you've got to understand what is it that you need to monitor and measure and understand within your organization that will help you meet that objective. So the second part of our approach is to try and map your organization into the solution and all the different elements of your organization, all the different data and activities that you perform that you need to monitor and measure to meet those objectives. So that will be things like understanding your organizational structure, understanding all of the services and products that you perform and produce and you offer, understanding the third parties that you use, and then mapping those to the objectives so you can see which of those will affect which objectives.
Well, I want to stick with the ESG vision component that you talked about earlier on in your last answer there. The ESG space talks a lot about the alphabet soup, but also the journey. And many companies and investors are on this journey, thankfully, but a great many more are starting to take it thanks to some of the regulatory developments that we just talked about, and some of the carrots like the Inflation Reduction Act here in the U.S. For businesses and or business and finance leaders tuning in here who are in that early or early-ish stage of this journey, what would you tell them about planning for the future and making sure that their ESG program is future-proof?
I think you've got to start by getting your hands around your ESG vision, understanding what those strategic objectives are and all of the elements of the organization that feed into those. You can then take the approach of the different frameworks. If we take TCFD, for example, as I mentioned earlier, that's something that the government in the UK is going to be using as the basis of their regulatory framework going forward. So that has a real risk management basis to it. You need to be able to manage all of your ESG risks and opportunities. So once you've established your organization framework, all of the activities that will help you meet your objectives, you can then understand and identify all the risks and opportunities that relate to those. And then you can assess and monitor and treat those risks, which will help you with ultimately your framework disclosures. And going into the future, the flexibility of managing through objectives means that you can map those objectives to the changing frameworks or regulations. If a new regulation or new framework comes along, then you can map your existing objectives that you've already got a good understanding about to those new frameworks. So immediately you get a good picture of everything that's going on in your organization that relates to that framework disclosure. And I guess the final piece, if you're looking at making sure you're future-proofed with your solution and your approach, the solution that you're using to be able to pull together all of that information needs to be future-proofed as well. It needs to be something that's flexible, something that can evolve. As your organization and those requirements evolve, you're going to need to be able to enhance, modify, change that solution, let it evolve with you as you evolve, so that you can always stay on top of your ESG program and all of the regulatory disclosures that you need to make.
Great. Well, yeah, it's certainly a year or two of serious evolution in this space that we're both working in here, Alex, and I really appreciate you coming in and sharing some of your insights with the Green Biz Studio.
Thanks very much.
And you've just heard from Alex Robinson, Head of Market Development for Empowered ESG here in the Green Biz Studio.